What if I told you that you don't exist? Not in the way you think, anyway. That the person you believe yourself to be, that voice in your head, the voice in the mirror, is a kind of carefully crafted illusion. It sounds crazy, I know. It goes against every feeling you've ever had. But some of the latest findings in modern science and some of the oldest insights from philosophy are starting to ask the same radical question. Is the solid, continuous you we all feel actually real? I want to take you on a journey that explores this question, using evidence from philosophy and neuroscience to gently dismantle that feeling of a fixed self, piece by piece. Because the point isn't to leave you with a terrifying void. The point is to show you that hiding behind this illusion is a reality so profound it has the power to liberate you from the heaviest burdens we all carry: fear, anxiety, and the weight of the past. We all have this feeling, right? That there's a little pilot sitting just behind our eyes, steering our body through the world. We are the thinker of our thoughts, the feeler of our feelings. This continuous me seems like the most obvious fact imaginable. And yet, for centuries, some of the world's most brilliant minds have warned us that it might be a trick, a phantom. The 18th century philosopher David Hume was one of the first to really pull at this thread. He argued that if you actually try to find this self, you'll come up empty-handed. Go on ahead and try it right now. Look inside your own mind. What do you find? Maybe a thought, then a feeling of warmth, a random image, a sound from the street, a memory. You'll find a rushing river of perceptions and sensations. Hume's conclusion was that the self is simply a bundle of perceptions that follow each other in a perpetual flow. There's no container, only the contents. The self isn't a solid entity. It's a story we tell ourselves to give all these fleeting moments a sense of unity. Modern neuroscience in many ways offers some fascinating support for Hume's idea. The influential cognitive philosopher Daniel Dennett builds on this with his theory of the narrative self. Dennett suggests our brains are constantly spinning a story to make sense of the world and our actions. You are the main character in that story. As Dennett famously put it, we are all virtuoso novelists, trying to make all of our experiences coherent to a single good story, our autobiography. From this perspective, the self is like the center of a narrative of gravity for that story. A useful, even necessary abstraction, but not a concrete thing. So think of it like a sandcastle. From a distance, it looks like a single solid object, but when you get close, you see it's nothing more than a temporary collection of individual grains of sand. Your sense of self can be seen the same way. It feels solid, but it might just be a temporary pattern, a story woven together by the brain to help us navigate life. And this isn't just a philosophical speculation. It's supported by what we're learning about the brain. Neuroscience shows us that our unified experience of now is a construction. Information from your eyes, ears, and touch all arrive at your brain at different speeds. Your brain cleverly holds on to them for a moment and then stitches them together into a seamless narrative that's always playing just slightly behind reality. The self is a part of that story. Experiments like the famous rubber hand illusion prove how flexible and malleable our sense of self is. In the illusion, your brain can be tricked into feeling that a fake rubber hand is your own, just by watching it being stroked, while with your real, hidden hand is stroked at the same time. If our brains can be so easily fooled about something as basic as where our body begins and ends, it shows how much of our experience is constructed, not just passively received. The feeling of being a person might just be the most convincing construction of them all. Okay, so if philosophy and neuroscience both suggest the self is a construct, why does it feel so intensely real? What's the point of this grand illusion? Here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Maybe the illusion isn't a bug in our system, but a feature. Here's a mind-bending idea to consider. What if you are not a person experiencing consciousness? What if you are consciousness experiencing the idea of a person? Let that sink in for a second. The idea you hold so dear, the character you play every day, is a vehicle, a temporary avatar for something such. Think of it like an incredibly advanced virtual reality game. You aren't the character on the screen with its programmed backstory, you are the player. The illusion of being the character is what makes the game immersive, but your true existence is outside the game's limits. The illusion of being a separate person could be a way to focus the vast potential of consciousness into a single, manageable point of view. This leads us to a radical philosophical theory called Panpsychism. Now, to be clear, this is not a mainstream scientific theory, but it has a long history in philosophy and has been getting a fresh look recently because it tackles the hard problem of consciousness head on. The hard problem is the question of how dead unfeeling matter, like the atoms in your brain, can suddenly give rise to the rich, subjective world of experience. Panpsychism proposes a simple, if startling, answer. It doesn't. This theory suggests that consciousness isn't a special thing that happens only in complex brains. Instead, it proposes that a very primitive form of experience is a fundamental and widespread feature of the universe. It's present in all matter to some degree. Now, proponents aren't saying your chair is pondering philosophy. Rather, they argue that the most basic building blocks of reality have a simple form of raw experience. What we call consciousness in humans is just what happens when these simple bits are organized into an incredibly complex system like a brain. From this philosophical viewpoint, your brain doesn't create consciousness out of nothing. It acts more like a sophisticated receiver that amplifies and structures it. This is different from the mainstream neuroscientific view, which generally posits that consciousness emerges from complex brain processes. But if we entertain the panpsychist idea for a minute, the illusion of being a person becomes the mechanism through which the universe experiences itself from a unique perspective. You aren't just a fleeting story. From this vantage point, you are a focal point where the universe is becoming aware of itself. Section 3. This is usually the point where a bit of existential dread can creep in. If I'm not this person, this identity I've spent my life building, then what's the point? Is my life a lie? This is the most important part of the journey because the answer is the exact opposite of what you'd fear. Realizing you may not be the fixed person you thought you were isn't the end of meaning. It can be the beginning of an incredible freedom. The ego, the construct itself, is arguably the source of most of our suffering, and seeing through that illusion can be the greatest liberation possible. First, you can find freedom from your past. Think about the mistakes, regrets, and shame you carry. We chain ourselves to these things because we believe they are essential parts of who we are, key chapters in our story. But what if they aren't? They are part of the story, but you are the awareness that witnessed it. You're not your past failures. You're like scenes in a movie you once watched. When you realize you are the awareness that experienced those things and not the things themselves, the chains can fall away. You're free to start the story over in every moment. Second, you can find freedom from anxiety. So much of our daily anxiety comes from defending the ego. We worry, what will people think of me? Did I say the right thing? Am I successful enough? Blah, 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 blah. This constant exhausting need to protect and polish our fragile identity is a prison. But if that self is a construct, what is there to defend? There's no fragile thing at your core that could be insulted or diminished. The fear of judgment starts to dissolve when you realize you are not the small separate self you thought you were. You can act and live with a lightness that's impossible when you're constantly guarding a fictional character. And finally, and most profoundly, you can find freedom from the feeling of loneliness. The illusion of being a person creates the ultimate separation. There's no me in here and the rest of the universe is out there. This can feel like a fundamental wound, but if consciousness is woven into everything, as a viewpoint like panpsychism suggests, that separation is the illusion. You aren't a lonely fragment in a cold cosmos. From this perspective, you feel as connected to the universe as a wave is to the ocean. The feelings emerge that the same awareness that looks out through your eyes is the same awareness that animates the world around you. We started this journey with a disruptive idea that you are not a person. We've seen how both philosophy and neuroscience point to the self as a story the brain tells itself. And we've explored a deeper possibility that this story is a vehicle for something far vaster, a universe of consciousness experiencing itself through you. Final realization is this, okay? The identity you thought you had to protect is the very thing that might be holding you back. It's a cage and not a castle. Letting go of it is not a loss, it's a homecoming. It's like waking up from the dream of being a single separate wave and remembering that you are the entire ocean. So maybe we should stop asking, who am I? And start experiencing what it's like to be everything. If this got you thinking, subscribe for more journeys into the nature of reality. And let me know in the comments, what does this idea free you from?